welcome to the Feasts of Ingathering. Welcome to the waning half moon. So this is the time of the month, every month, when the moon shifts from her bright half to her darker half. And we gather, we reserve the right to go within. So if you go outside, the moon is like this. It is a half moon. At every one of the Feasts of Ingathering, it's the waning half moon. The most important thing here at the Feast of Ingathering is resonance. So we're going to talk about what that means, and we're going to actually practice it. Also, the revolution. What is this? What am I talking about? What does it mean for us? Vibration. We'll talk about the physics and the metaphysics of vibration. And then energetic navigation. We touched on it last time, but we're going to dig more into what it is, why it's important, and how to do it. And then finally, we're going to conclude with some context. So that's like the seasons that we're in, the seasons within seasons that we're in, the stars. I'm going to bring in some Vedic astrology and the mysteries of our context. We're going to start with some basic foundational physics to understand what we physically are and to understand the shift that's happening for us. Resonance. All systems, including molecular systems and particles, tend to vibrate at a natural frequency depending on their structure. And this is known as the resonant frequency. So this tuning fork right here, just based on the material that it's made of, the size and the shape that it is, there is a tone that is its fundamental resonant frequency. And that's the tone that it is built to emit that tone. And what happens, the phenomenon of resonance, is even if this tuning fork is vibrating very, very softly, if it's a very, very quiet tone, or even if it's still, and another tuning fork comes by and it is singing that resonant frequency of the first tuning fork, the first tuning fork is going to start to sing. It can't help it. It's what it is made for. That is a resonant frequency. And that is the tone that it will express the loudest. That's what it's designed to do. Few more points from the realm of physics. Everything is energy and vibration. That's every particle, every molecule is in motion at its own specific frequency. Everything is intimately connected with every other thing. So we know this through quantum physics. We're just discovering more and more about how truly interconnected and entangled our world is. Everything is a part of one thing. Nothing is outside of the thing. This is the totality, by definition, contains all things. Nothing can be excluded from totality. And also, our perceptions impact reality. Time and time again, scientists change the outcome of the experiment depending on their expectations, depending on their observation. That impacts the reality in scientific experiments, which makes a lot of sense when we remember that everything is energy in vibration. And the physics of wave behavior, including resonance and interference, is relevant to things like our beliefs, our thoughts, our emotions, our assumptions. These things are physical things. These are vibrations. These are waves, and they impact the physical world. And even though everything is energy and vibration, everything is intimately connected, and we're all part of one thing, we have believed that we are separate from our source. We have believed that we are separate from each other. And because we hold those beliefs, the holding of those beliefs impacts the experiment of the world as it is created. And so we create a world and structures that can only reflect that belief. They can't not be impacted by that belief. But those structures and those beliefs are incoherent with the rhythms of what is natural. And what has come to be accepted as normal, we're habituated to it, it's familiar, it's what we expect. That's not the same thing as being accurate or true or natural or inherent. So that's like the tuning fork may be playing a tone for its entire life, And it's the only thing that it knows, but that doesn't mean that it's its resonant frequency, because there is nothing but truth that is true. Only truth can be true. So even though we have these deeply culturally entrenched, historically validated, societally validated norms and expectations, we can only deny our nature and our truth, our resonant frequency for so long. And there comes a point where the naturally occurring resonance of the tone that is inherent and true is experienced in a way that makes an indelible impact of the self. And this inflection point, when that tone is experienced in a way that you can't unknow it, that's the revolution. That's what I'm talking about. And at this point in humanity's history, the availability and our capacity to perceive this tonal experience is occurring at an extraordinarily rapid and wide sweeping rate. This is the revolution. It's a personal encountering with your own resonant frequency, which, as we're all aspects of what is, there's commonality in that resonant tone. So this is an individual experience. It's an individual revolution, and it's also a collective thing. This is changing who we are individually and in collective groups and as a species. And change is necessarily destructive to what has been before. What has been ends and dies in order for the new to be born. But we don't know what the new is going to look like. And so that creates fear of the unknown. And when we feel unstable, we do a thing where we anticipate that whatever it is, it's probably going to be worse than what we've got, lowering our own expectations to somehow protect ourselves from disappointment. We also might be like yearning for and idealizing the before times. Like in some ways, things were easier before we felt this incompatibility with life as we know it. We also might feel some grief. And we might not even know why. Like these past several years, people's lives are changing dramatically. There's loss, deaths in the family, there's divorce, moves across the country or across the world. Like, how many people do you know who have been like seriously, their lives have been upended? And our systems are changing too. It's like people are just getting so uncomfortable in like whether it's their job or their relationship, like their status quo. It's like they just can't vibe with that anymore. And it is so uncomfortable to try to sit in it. So this change, it's going to render much of what was created from a belief structure that was colored by that inherently false separateness. It's no longer going to be serviceable to us as a changed people. And our mind loves to know what's going on. It wants to figure it out. And when it can't figure it out, and it's kind of fundamental to this shift that like our mind can't really figure it all out, not in the way that it has figured things out, which has been based in those old structures of power over and separateness. When the mind can't figure it out, it tries to resist the change, which is uncomfortable. That's like when we try to force ourselves into a job that is like we are being pushed out of, just like energetically being pushed out of. And the resistance is really uncomfortable. That's like heat, like friction heat in the electrical wire. And that is part of what contributes to burnout. So even if you don't really know people who have had big life shifts recently, you're not talking about this shift in humanity with other people. Like you're not talking about this shift in humanity. Even if that's not on your radar, I bet you know a lot of people who are feeling burned out, who are just feeling like exhausted and worn out and like overwhelmed and grief. A lot of people are feeling this and it's impacting them, even if they don't know what's going on. So this is a lot. This is a lot. This sounds kind of dramatic and intense and kind of difficult. And it can be less difficult, kind of, in the sense that it's happening. Like if you're hoping that it could be less difficult, like I want it to not be happening. I want change to not be happening. Like that's not going to happen. To my perception, this is happening. But though change is challenging, it doesn't have to mean suffering. And there are some things that we can do to support ourselves and each other in going through this transition. And the things that I want to touch on today that we can use to support ourselves is the practice of resonance. I want to talk about resonance and energetic navigation and applying a contextual reference and using that to inform our own change. But before we dive into more content, let's do the thing. Let's do some resonance.